Well, we of course start every call with standard disclaimers. You can take a screenshot of these, but I'm going to go through the disclaimer summary. This may contain forward-looking statements. There will be no earnings claims or financial advice given. This is purely for educational purposes. The digital rewards are used for utility. We heavily encourage you to DYOR or do your own research. Take the things that we talk about and go do your own research and apply that to what you find. And the nodes and blockchains are governed by the DGF, or the distributed governance framework, which is all of us as node owners and operators. All right. So the analogy for today is kind of taking that utility aspect and applying that to an analogy that we can kind of all understand, something that you might have grown up on, so it may be a familiar concept to you, and help you kind of understand where the world is as we're in this strange transition that's been going on between Web 2 and Web 3, and the pitfalls that have actually kind of happened in both of them, and why our decentralized ecosystem is actually a really good aspect and a really good like resolution to both systems, as they both have problems currently. So this slide title would be From Arcade to Ecosystem: Reimagining Web3 with Real Utility. So we'll be exploring how decentralized ownership and real world services can transform the promise of Web3 from speculation into sustainable community driven value. So, the traditional arcade model, imagine, if you will, like any arcade that you're familiar with. It could just be a small local arcade, something that you grew up with, or if you think about the big, huge, bustling arcades that are out nowadays, like here in the States, we have Dave and Buster's, Chuck E. Cheese, Peter Piper Pizza, um, all kinds of them, and new ones that are starting to surface as well, as like the Main Event. And we talked in the past on the models of Web 2 and how it's really exploited and continued to extract value because they have those central authorities over them. And I think about, whenever I grew up going to Chuck E. Cheese and the entertainment value that you got back then versus now. Like, sure, the buildings seem nicer, sure, the games are more modern, the tech is a little bit better, but you don't have that same experience, and you sure don't get it for the same amount of value that you have to put into it. Like, you have to put a lot more into it now, and it just doesn't have all those extra entertainment value that used to come with it. There's not the characters anymore, the little animated stage and all those things that I remember that came with it. It's gone downhill, and it's way more expensive. So picturing this bustling arcade where customers feed coins into game cabinets, and every transaction flows to that central operator who maximizes profits for their investors. This centralized model really does extract value from the customers, and it concentrates it all at the top. The arcade thrives, but the community simply pays to play more and more for actually getting less and less out of it. That community arcade revolution could be, again, going from that Web 2 to Web 3 model, community ownership of neighbors coming together to collectively own and operate the arcade instead, and then sharing both governance and rewards, where now they have to get together and say, how are we going to really facilitate this? Well, they would create a utility token to deploy and mint that, and the community would maintain that supply and delivery, and they'd be actually rewarded within that own token to do that. And that would actually create that decentralized economy that they need, and exactly why they would need to maintain that. And then coming up with that shared revenue model where customers would purchase the tokens to access and play the services. So instead of the old model where people are feeding money into the machines, there's actually a governed token within this arcade. And as that comes in, it actually has that on and off ramp exchange and the utility of it inside of the arcade to where now that revenue could flow back to the community owners transparently because they're participating in it collectively. And how this token economy works is its real utility and real value. So because there are tokens, that becomes the medium of exchange and access to play in the arcade. Each machine is owned by the community. And then as demand grows, that secondary market just naturally emerges. So game activity reinforces participation, creating a self-sustaining ecosystem anchored in actual use cases. So again, this arcade is that great analogy to where people take their uh, fiat currency or their dollars, and there are token machines outside of the arcade that people can actually go purchase the arcade token, take it into the arcade, and play the games. But because there is this secondary market that emerged, like as people are playing the games and as they're, maybe being rewarded back if they're doing really good in the games, or if you're a community participant that's actually helping operate the arcade itself, they can take them outside and put them into those machines to actually supply the tokens to the outside world so that they can actually purchase them and utilize them inside the arcade. That's how you get this full economy. But there's a problem with current crypto. And we'll get into this here in a second, but see if you notice anything about the picture on the left. So many people think like with crypto, oh yeah, it's set up like the arcade. You can come in and you can exchange to a token and you know there's that portion of it. But the current crypto market, the current Web3 market is speculation over utility. Most tokens are bought for price appreciation rather than real world use, and that creates very volatile and unsustainable markets. Few world products. The ecosystem lacks tangible services that drive genuine revenue and customer satisfaction, and speed over usefulness. Those projects boast about technical throughput while ignoring the fundamental question, what problem are we solving? So this picture on the left is actually an empty arcade. There's no Miss Pac-Man in there. There's no racing games or, skee ball. There's nothing inside of this arcade. So whenever everyone talks about other Web3 or blockchain or crypto projects, all they can do is exchange them in that secondary market that emerged. They built the infrastructure to have something, but they never did anything with it. So this arcade model analogy is literally the current world that up to this point has operated in. They had the coin machines where someone could come and exchange, but they never maintained that. They never really decentralized that in the fact that true community ownership is driving towards something. And it's kind of a really funny thing, but it's such an easy analogy to think about how like humorous that is. Could you imagine going to an arcade, putting your dollars in, getting that arcade token, walking in, and then there's nothing to do with it? What we're doing is actually putting the games in place. We're not driving anyone for the token. Sure, they can come in and they can participate. They can see the value in what we're doing and earn tokens, but they see that the value is the entertainment value in the arcade analogy, that people are going to come here to play the games, to be provided that entertainment value. That demand for the token is demand to come in and play the games inside of the arcade. So we maintain all of that infrastructure, and then we can actually drop in so that we actually have a consumer base that brings revenue in so that all of that flows back, but for a real utility application. So now reimagining Web3 with real world services. So the arcade analogy works really, really, really well for Adventure World, whenever you think about gaming. But we can take this analogy And you can replace gaming with literally anything in all of the different decentralized ecosystem industries and all of the different impact brands. So, because of that, we move beyond centralized profit extraction and speculative trading to build a platform where community ownership meets genuine utility. Real products generate real revenue that flows back to the participants, creating durable token demand anchored in usefulness. So, again, outside of a venture world, replace gaming with, you know, medical, banking, uh, commerce and communication platforms, electricity, gold mining, and ethical mining practices, food and agriculture. Like literally think of every single one of the brands in our decentralized ecosystem. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're creating this ecosystem of products and services that have that demand to utilize that token for its access point. And that's exactly what we were just talking about. So AI and connection, access AI tools and experience through the Wind token, precious metals for Element, Dex and data for Elevate, health and wellness for Eyes, food and agriculture for Grow, video and commerce for Rally, power and energy for Green, and banking and DeFi for Switch. This decentralized revenue loop. And I know that we'll continue talking about this so much because there's a breakage in the Web 2 world of why Web 2 is actually so bad for us. And we'll talk about exactly where that is. So here let's start with community owners of how we're fixing this model. It's collectively governed and participates in the decentralized ecosystem. The community does this. Real services are deployed with real products that serve customer needs. That brings in active users. Those active users want these services, so they purchase tokens to access these valuable services. And this is where the breakage is in the traditional model of Web 2 because revenue does not return and flow transparently back to the community in Web 2. It's extracted out to that central authority. But here, because we are community owned, it flows transparently back to the community, which creates a very, very, very amazing concept that's really become such a lost art that sometimes it's hard to even wrap your mind around. But that drives continuous innovation because now, instead of that extracted value being lost forever, it comes right back into our decentralized ecosystem and allows us to purchase and develop better services and expansion. We can put better games in the arcade. We can bring in, food and beverages and, create a better experience for not only the community owners, but for the actual consumer themselves. And again, this loop just continues going in a flywheel that we can continuously improve, continue bringing revenue in, continue increasing our services that can be provided, and then continue those active users. And as all of this grows together, the entire ecosystem benefits from it. This creates a resilient feedback loop. Increased adoption strengthens token demand, which incentivizes service improvement, attracting more users and reinforcing the entire decentralized ecosystem.
Can I say one thing on this slide, Jake?
Yep, absolutely.
All right, cool. So this is a super important piece, and not all of the pieces are fully baked out on this yet, but this is the exact thing that kind of, you know, where value is created and shared, and really what differentiates us from traditional Web 2. So we have a community of owners, right? I'll just kind of go through this again, and I'm going to add a couple pieces to give you kind of like a forward-looking piece to really understand how I'm going to break it down a little bit more because I love confusing the hell out of you guys. No, I'm just kidding. I just see a couple key things that I think is important. To understand. So you have a community of owners, they own the infrastructure we collectively govern. This is our node network right now. In the analogy of the arcade, it's like pretty much we would own the arcade infrastructure and all of that and give birth to these arcade tokens, right? Real products and services, everything you see that we have right now in, Connect and all of our brands, everything that hasn't even been born yet, like all of these cool right now, it's just the tip of the iceberg of product and services, right? You see Connect, it has an AI. You see R-Link, it has video conferencing. But there's more to come, more useful products and services. So just keep that in mind. That's a little bit forward looking. Active users. We don't have an active user base. Most of our active users are the owners. Okay. So just imagine in the very near future, we have people just coming in to use products and services to get the value of it. They don't even need to know about, what a node is or what a block bot is. They just want to maybe get an AI subscription, or they just maybe want to use the video conferencing, or they maybe just want to save on their power pay. Like we don't have that big group of people in here that's just here for the value that's inherently baked into the product or services. Almost everybody here are owners who are also users of product and services. So just, project into the future a little bit where it's like now we're starting to onboard just users of products and services, players in the arcade, okay, who are using these products and services to get the inherent value that's within them. But a piece here that's missing is everything we do is going to be rewarding. Usage of products and services isn't um, rewarding as it will be. We have to vote into things in our community, like using the R-Link service, for example. Right now, uh, there's no like thing baked into it where you get rewarded for product usage, product sharing, things like that. So just imagine that. Like imagine that goes live now. So now you have a community of owners that are earning rewards as they support and validate the network. And as services are deployed, community owners get to use them, and also just regular community participants get to use them now. But in addition to it, they're also being rewarded that same very token. So as outside liquidity comes in, whether it's they're swiping their credit card, whether they're, any outside liquidity that comes in now, that pays for the product or services, this revenue returns. But one thing under the surface here about this revenue returning, and I don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole, but like every bit of liquidity will feed into our token markets, right? And so the revenue returns in the form of the token. So me as an owner, I'm validating and supporting the network. I'm getting a distribution of these token that play into the same market that this smart flow is going into, right? So as liquidity increases, as pe more people buy products and services, this means more buy pressure on our markets because what's happening that liquidity comes in, it buys tokens out of the markets, it takes those tokens and redistributes that back to the very community. Both community owners, and what we don't have right now is community participants. So community participants there's no rewards mechanism built in, but when it is built into it, everybody's rewarded for everything they do in any way they participate, whether it's usage, whether it's network support, but all of this revenue that comes in through people wanting to get access to the product or services buys tokens out of the market. So it pushes upward pressure on the token price. You never ever hear us say what we think the token price will be, but when you have a system, right, that fundamentally is driven by real world products or services, it will constantly push upward pressure on the price of the token. And so these tokens that are bought get redistributed back to the community. So an active participant will earn some of these tokens, a community owner will earn some of these tokens. So it gives our token um, it makes our tokens stronger. And this, you see revenue returns and it goes to continuous innovation. Well, part of this in here, it's like token strength and market strength to make this cycle go stronger because as the token's stronger, right? It's easier to continuously innovate on new products and services. It's easier to grow the community of owners now because people are human, right? We're human. It's very difficult to see the future of what's the potentiality of it. Um, that's the hard part. it's easy to see it when it's right in front of you, you know. And so right now we have a community of like early pioneers who most of us were kind of here before we even had markets or even any type of working products or services. But what's going to happen real soon is that as we grow and as this feedback loop starts, you know, our markets will get stronger and our community will get stronger. And then as it gets stronger, it's kind of like a compounding snowball effect where it's easier to onboard a new owner who purchases some type of node. It's easier to give somebody access to the products and services now because all the rewards are baked into it. And as this becomes easier and more people come, it just gets easier and easier as it goes around and around because there's no grimy, greedy fingertips just stealing all of the value out of it. It becomes more valuable as we push and create actions that help you know, go out to the world and bring in new people to get the value we're doing. But I just wanted to kind of point that out, you know, this how this revenue returns, that's where the breakage, and then the missing part here was understanding that active users will earn rewards too. That's something that doesn't exist right now, you know. Um, and then how that strengthens the token as this circle goes round and round.
Yeah, and that's a perfect point that imagine who would ever play at that old arcade that's not community owned that doesn't reward your gameplay inside of the arcade to where you can actually have a much better experience at this new arcade where you can actually be rewarded back some of the tokens so that you can continue your gameplay. Like that entertainment value is shared back to the consumer that actually helps support this ecosystem outside of just the owner. So that's a perfect catch and addition there, John. I love all of that and what we're building here. So I wanted to show a real world example here. Now, this was an experience that John and I and many other people went through with Gala. And again, I don't want to speculate price. I don't want to speculate any type of value or anything that comes with the secondary market. The thing that I want you to pay attention here is here back in November of 2021, what actually started happening here. You'll see these purchases coming in. These weren't speculative purchases. This token stayed like this for a very long time. It's not like all of a sudden someone just said, "Hey, let's start buying this token." It was literally this was the arcade games and the doors opening up in the arcade. If you look at these were some posts that I grabbed from Facebook, and I could have grabbed many, 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 many more talking about these different games. So this was some of the games coming online and some the NFTs and the products and services inside of the games opened up. Where this one was specifically a land sale of NFTs for Echoes of Empires. And then talking about the exemplars, which was the characters inside of one of the games, Miranda's. So that's users coming in and wanting to acquire in-game assets so that they could start playing these games. And how did they have to like exclusively purchase those? They had to purchase them with Gala. So they came into this secondary market and started purchasing Gala so that they could actually utilize it inside the game. So perfect analogy with the arcade is the doors opened up, people started coming in, and they started playing utilizing this new decentralized ecosystem.
I think it was something a little bit more than that too. The key piece here is that like this they that it wasn't that just the door was open and they came in. I think the key piece here is that there was a community inviting people into the door,
Yeah.
you know? And I think that's the power we have and don't realize it, guys. You know, that's really, I think, like Gala when we were you know doing Gala at first it was very difficult to build the community, you know, it was a lot, it was kind of like Connect several years ago. It was just like things didn't make sense, things were buggy, there wasn't any like really well-defined product or services. But what happened with Gala is once we started building our core community of people who understood like where we were going and the vision of what was being built and how that would create value, what happened is you had a informed community that understood and took it upon themselves to go bring people to the door and say, "Hey, here's a new experience. You know, you have the choice. You can play in this traditional type of system where everything's extracted, or you can come into this door and come play games in this like shared kind of community-owned ecosystem." And I think that's the difference here. I think it's important we say it just wasn't the door opened. The door opened, and we had community, just like everybody on here, that went out to the world and showed people, you know, they evangelized what it was we were doing. And every action, every small action led to more value, you know, and you see the token here. And, you know, this isn't speculative, this is real. That the Gala token went from practically nothing all the way up to 87 cents, not from some magic button, not from osmosis, not from luck. It was literally from people like me and Jake and everybody who was involved early going out and evangelizing this and bringing people in and sharing it so people could have this new experience. And it's the same way with everything we're doing in Connect. It's like, if not us, then who? It's like, if we own this, who is going to do this for us? Nobody. You know, this isn't about selling so much as it is about sharing what it is we're doing because everybody's going to participate on their own level. Not everybody's going to be an owner. You know, most people in what we're doing are going to just be participants, users of products or services, you know. And I know it's difficult right now because our products and services aren't fully baked out. But we're at the point right now where we're changing seasons from infrastructure over to products or services. So there's this kind of like overlap. There's still people buying nodes, there's still people accessing products and services, but eventually this will all be about products and services. You know, people will want to get these products and services to get the value, and if nobody's around to tell them that there's a better way, they'll continuously participate in extractional systems and we will never grow because it's our responsibility because we own it. And I just want to point that out because I think that people don't realize that we have literally the power to shift this in the direction we want, you know, and it's just about, you know, having having the empowerment, you know, and having the knowledge to just go out and kind of talk about what we're doing and not to be afraid, you know, and it's not to sell. Selling can be kind of icky. It can give you this icky feeling. It's not about that, you know, it's about offering somebody a new experience in a new system in a new way. I think it's icky to just use existing systems that extract data and steal money, you know, under the guise of tools that give us some type of benefit. I think that's the icky way. But anyways, I just wanted to kind of point that out because it's not just an open door. It's an open door and it's an invite is really what it is.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Like if you don't have a community base there to actually educate other people and help share that experience with people, then you're right. You could have the best thing in the world, but if it's never shared with anyone, then it's absolutely worthless. So, and just like if you think about in the Web2 world, they can't just open their doors either. They have to do different things. They have to advertise and bring in that consumer base. So and sadly, in the Web2 world, we've actually built those systems for those people as well. So, staying on the arcade analogy, here in my hometown, this really big one opened. It's called the Main Event. I don't know if maybe that's a franchise near you or not, but the only reason I went there is because I had a coworker at the time say, "Hey, took my family there, had a really good time." But he didn't get rewarded to do that. All of that value was still extracted. So really, really good call out there, John, that it's not just the doors themselves opening. There's a lot of work to still be done on the community to educate and like you said, evangelize what exactly it is that we're doing here so that we can bring in that consumer base and let them participate within this community. And again, just to tie all of this together, that the two paths of Web2 centralized path of decay versus the Web3 community path of adoption. So in Web2, you have centralized ownership that concentrates all of the control. In Web3, you have community ownership that aligns the incentives. Web 2, you have product quality that diminishes as profit focus increases. Remember, as they, start to saturate in what it is that they can provide technologically, the only other change that they have in their back pocket to continue increasing these quarterly profits and dividends to their investors is to lower product quality. Uh, in Web3, you have high value services that attract and retain users. Web 2, the investors benefit while customers lose value. In Web 3, you have real revenue from real products that build sustainability and returns to the community participants. Web 2, we're currently going through this where trust erodes and that consumer base and customer base drains. People opt out of that system. They leave because that repercussion that they have extracted and extorted all of that value has allowed us and has actually as a repercussion forced us to build the systems that are currently being built. So as that trust erodes and people unplug from that system, they plug into these Web3 models. And within that is where consumers are empowered as stakeholders in the network. So our approach not only fixes all of the problems within Web 2, we're actually fixing Web 3's utility problem by creating durable value through services that people actually want and need rather than relying on speculation and hype. So, hope that was a fun analogy for everyone. I know that's kind of how my mind has to work on a lot of things because the world is such a vast place and there's so many different variables that happen with, every single industry that we talk about and what went wrong there. Where is that value being extracted? And all of those variables that come into it on a global matter and seeing the faults in all of it and how can we change that? What can we do about that together? To really bring humanity back in alignment with how we're supposed to be living because this is not sustainable how everyone's living in the web 2 world. Like we've watched it get worse and worse and worse and realizing like enough is enough, we have to do something about this. So I like simplifying them down to these analogies so that we can understand what exactly it is that we're building and why it matters so much so that that is what drives me to share exactly what that is.
Yeah, and like this whole system, like this isn't like theoretical, guys. Like this is we have the foundation in place, and I'll just give you guys some stats, right? So like we know that the revenue currently flows through the Wind blockchain, and that revenue is shared with the community, right, through the Blockbot product, specifically through the Wind node side of the Blockbot product. About $9.6 million this year alone has flowed back to the community. And it's been several tens of millions throughout the years have flowed back into this community. And I think people don't realize that. And I think it's literally it flows through what's currently known as the Blockbot product. Without this Blockbot product, the revenue doesn't flow to you. It literally. I love all of our projects, right? I am like a huge supporter of all of them. I have like freaking 50 nodes in all of them ish, somewhere around there, some more, some less. Like I'm a massive supporter of everything we do, but I understand one thing. I understand that not only is it important for me to support the infrastructure of all of our different impact brands and our projects, but if I understand things correctly, which I think I do, um, it makes good financial sense for me to position myself right in the middle of where all this money flows, right? As we grow, because I believe that we will be the next system out there. I believe that like we will be this next system that once people know what it is we're doing and it's very familiar, like very comparable and similar to Web 2 in the form of user experience, which we're not quite there yet, right? We're still kind of blockchainy in Web 3, but there will come a time and day and place where a regular human being of this planet will be presented with two options. It's like, here, use this traditional thing that you've always used, that you're familiar with, or use this thing right now that may be a little rickety and blockchainy, but in the future it'll be like it looks the same. What's the benefits of extractional type of systems? Nothing. Free, like tools or free tools, paid tools or free tools, you know, stealing data, money, and extraction under the guise of free tools or pay tools, right? Or you have this new system here. It's like you can get the same experience, but be rewarded for it, but have data sovereignty, but be in a system that's owned by the people for the people. And once we get to that point, um, I think I lost my train of thought here, but once we get to that point, like everything's going to change, but it can start to change now. You know what I mean? And I think my whole point to this was like, um, this is live now, and like without the Blockbot product that contains the Win node, like nobody would get any of the value back. The value comes through the win node that's contained in the Blockbot product. And the amount of value that's returned is obviously based on proof of action. So if you're just coming in here kind of on the sidelines, like cool, you'll earn a token that as other people do a bunch of work and our token plays into that circle, where it like goes into the market, revenue comes in, it goes into the market. As we grow, you'll benefit indirectly because you're holding the same token that's playing into the market. But there's people here that are, doing a lot of proof of action. They're out there sharing with people, signing people up to new products and services. They're obviously going to earn more of these tokens, So like if you're sitting here saying, huh, 9.6 million, I earned $900 this year. It's just because there's people who earned more because it's a merit-based system, it's a fair system. Not everybody's going to be able to live in a mansion. Some people have to live in an apartment. The people who live in the mansions are the people that worked for it. Um, that's why they can live in the mansion. But it's a very fair merit-based system based on action. So your rewards will be equally it will be equivalent to the amount of action that you put in. And that action could just be running nodes, it could be referring, could be sharing products and services, and all types of cool things. So it's real. $9.6 million has been given to the community through the Win blockchain this year. And if I open it up to the past 3 years, it gets even more than that. And like, what's it going to be next year or the year after? 10 million, 100 million, like these are real markets. These are real verticals that we're going into. Like if you look at the AI market and just the blockchain markets, like the blockchain right now, it's like 2 point something trillion dollars market cap, right? AI market, who knows? Everybody says something different, but it's already up in the trillions. What's the energy market? What's the precious metals market? What's the health and wellness market? These are freaking massive, massive markets that if we can just capture a small slice of the people on this planet to give them a better experience, that is mega, mega money coming through a system that is shared transparently with its community. Right now, we're just so dang small, guys. It's like it's hard to see the value of what we're doing. It just takes small actions, small, small actions every day from everybody to get us to the point where this starts to make really good sense. And that's the same thing that happened with Gala. You saw that chart. The products and services side of it was one thing. There was a community in the background saying, "Hey, world, look at what we're doing. Come have a new experience." If those two things didn't happen, it's like a symbiotic relationship between the brand and the products and services and the very community of owners. And if one of them falls short, then it's not going to work. We both kind of move together, right? And that's where the magic really begins to happen. So we can take $9.6 million total this year, and if we all go out there and do these small actions, and it can be super simple stuff, it can be a give. You might not know how to explain this to somebody, bring them into a presentation, showcase a product or service. Like you don't have to be this massive salesperson. It can be like, here, set up a free account. Let me give you some token. You just did your part, right? Next thing it could be like, hey, here's a learn to earn NFT. Come talk to John, Jake, or Scott on a learn to earn and learn a little something. Or it could be just sit on the sidelines. They've done their part at that point. It's an account set up. Maybe they're not ready to participate right now because it's just too blockchainy. Maybe they're waiting for the perfect product or service. But my point here, guys, is that collective small actions lead to just big action and movement. It's when think about this. I want to put this into perspective. Let's just say, I don't know what the number is, right? But we have like 100,000 people here, right? Probably a small percentage of them are active. Let's just say 15,000 active users right now. If everybody just signed up one more person and did a give, we would double our active user base overnight. And then if that happened again, it would quadruple. It's literally that simple. It's a small action. And when we're not doing it collectively, it becomes harder and more of a burden for the people who are, because it takes more effort by less people to get to where we otherwise could have if we all moved together. You see what I'm saying? And we've lived it. Jake and I have lived this and done this before. And we got to the point as a community where literally everybody was sharing. Everybody can share. Not everybody is a massive recruiter. I know that, but on average, everybody can share with 2.5 people, can sign up 2.5 people. That's the stats. 2 people and a midget, apparently. But that's the stats. Usually it's like a family member, a friend. I don't know where the point 0.5 came from, but that's my midget joke for the day. Um, Even though I have friends who are midgets, I don't want to shame midgets. I'm just saying 2.5 people. So it like my point here, guys, is like the power is in our hands and we don't even realize it. And like you see me every day this past week and next week, like I'm trying to create this environment that makes you feel comfortable, a comfortable place to bring somebody into when you may or may not know how to explain it or feel confident explaining it. You just got to get them in front of Jake or I. That's it. We're not selling, we're just sharing. That's it. People make their own decisions. So our job is to put people in front of what it is we're doing, show them that there's an open door. They decide whether they want to walk in or not.
And John, if you think about it, like these are things that everyone's already either consciously or subconsciously doing anyways. I mean, we're constantly building products and services and a community that becomes a product for Web2 companies. Like we're always doing that. I don't know how many people I brought into Facebook, you know,
Oh, totally.
but I didn't benefit from any of that. So now when we flip the script and we are the community base, but we also own everything. Like that's whenever you become much more conscious of like, I have to share this. Like this is, I'm part owner in this. And I see the value and the resolution that this can be for so many different problems that you take it a lot more seriously to invite people and let them know what exactly it is that you're involved with and what your mission value is to that you set out to do. So you know, and you're rewarded to do that, instead of just building extractional value that you kind of almost helped humanity become entrapped in that, actually helping free all of those people from that model now becomes a much more powerful and to me like a personal responsible mission to seek out and do.
Yeah. And that's another good analogy because I don't know, I remember Facebook 2009 playing like Words with Friends, Mafia Wars. That's when I first got exposed to Facebook. And like what do you think Facebook was valued at back then? I know that was a couple years after they moved from just being like in Harvard, like the college profiles, and they kind of went out to like people now. But let's just say, I'm just gonna throw numbers here. I'm probably totally wrong, but we know now Facebook is like one of the biggest corporations in the world, right? At that time, it wasn't. Let's just say it was valued at like $5 million in 2009. And so, like, you got early participants like Jake and I, and everybody else who was like on Facebook starting to get the experience, like, hey, come check out this Facebook. We all contributed to the growth of that, and we didn't own any equity in it. So as it grew from being valued from 5 million to 100 million to a billion to several billion, I don't even know what it's valued at, but it's like super valuable right now. And the only reason it's valuable, guys, is because there's still active people using it. If we all just shut down our Facebook right now, Facebook would be worthless. But my point is, like, imagine if Facebook was a system where we were owners in it, the very community. And as it grew from being valued at $5 million all the way up to hundreds of millions and billions of dollars now, and all of this ad revenue is spinning through the system. And instead of going to Zuck's pocket, it's all going to our pocket, the very community of owners and participants. That's literally what we're building right now. And I don't think people quite think this is real because the value isn't realized even a little bit yet. But it'll happen. Once this becomes valuable, everybody will know and say, dang, John and Jake knew what the hell they were talking about. I should have listened to them more. And I'm telling you guys, like, what we are building is real. Nobody has what we're doing. We literally have we have laid the foundation infrastructure across almost every major industry. Now we just need to bring the people and the revenue in to scale our products and services into this system that circulates value back through. It's that freaking simple. Like it's that simple. And if you don't see the value right now or believe it, like mark my words, like it will come because it's by design in the system. It's designed for the value to come. There's nobody pulling the money out. It stays with us. Even Gala didn't have that piece. That's where Gala failed. And that's what we learned with Gala. We learned how to decentralize control and we learned how to circulate value back through the community. And that's the difference here. And Gala was a massive success, but a massive failure at the same time. And so that's what we're building here, guys. And so key takeaways, I think I want to challenge you guys to feel empowered to really be an owner and what that means to own something, how we create our own value as people, as participants, and as owners in the system. And right now, it's kind of pre-value, it's kind of pre-understanding of like really what it is we're doing. But as we all take small actions collectively, it turns into a big, big movement. And so we need to all get loud, you know, whether that's, I'm not saying we need to go be a massive recruiter. We all just need to work within our means at whatever level we're at collectively. When we do that in unison together, this literally becomes a movement. And then we attract and create a gravity that snowballs and creates more people. So our voice gets louder and louder, you know. One person turns into two, turns into four, and we grow. All right. So I think with that, it's been a good Saturday. You guys have a good rest of your day, and
Bye, everyone.
all right, take care.